joining Anne's Art Desk. These videos are brought to you by the City of Palo Alto and the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation.
Welcome to my class. Thanks for saying it's fuchsias. I couldn't remember. You might want some flowers, but today is really sort of a technical day about drawing in perspective. And my flowers, we'll draw them a little bit, maybe, but they're really to demonstrate how you find ellipses and sort of base shapes out in nature. So they're kind of a way to apply today's technical lesson to the natural world. But today is going to be pretty much you and a piece of paper and your brains. So it's a little bit less nature-based than usual. I think I may ask for your feedback and what you want future classes to be like via the Google Classroom or some other means. So I just went out and grabbed a bunch of flowers so that once we've talked about ellipses and perspective a little bit, we can see how we might see that in what we have here. So let's start off strong with a little bit about perspective. And what you need for this class is quite simple. We're going to do a little bit about perspective and atmospheric perspective. So there are two types of perspective. There's linear and atmospheric. There are more types of perspective, but that's what we're talking about today. And atmospheric. Atmospheric is much more about color and line, and then linear is about how shapes change as you perceive them over space, which I think is really fun. It's especially fun to do it with toddlers whose perception of the world is not very set, and so they make scientific conclusions that are adorable. So linear and atmospheric perspective. So atmospheric perspective and linear perspective are two similar connected ideas, but they're also quite different. So atmospheric perspective is about how the air influences how you perceive things. So when you look across the beautiful hills of California and you're looking toward the mountains and you're standing next to a eucalyptus tree and you look across a couple of hills and over there on the horizon there's another eucalyptus tree. That one looks grayer and greener and paler and less focused and fuzzier than the one right next to you. What has happened is there's a big layer of air between you and that tree. And that air, the light, the smog, the fog, the particulate matter in the air changes how you perceive the color because you're seeing the air between you and the object. That's what Monet meant when he said, the subject, my dear sir, is the light. So when he's looking at the haystack, he's actually looking at the space between him and the haystack. He's looking at the light between him and the haystack. That's what he's painting. So it's kind of, so atmospheric perspective is that how distance influences our perception of color and light. And also line, because you can do it with line. That's a lot of, we started this session out with line language. And a lot of that line language where you perceive something like that, you perceive that this line here is behind this line because there's that little gap. That's a little tiny bit of atmospheric perspective in line form. So atmospheric perspective is also, you could make that stronger by doing something like this, where you thicken this line. So I'll go over this in a minute, a little bit more, but leaving that gap and making this thicker, you can kind of see that this line is closer to you. So that you can do atmospheric perspective with color, but you can also do it with line, with shading, that kind of thing. You can pretty quickly say which of these is in front and which is behind. Heavenly bodies here, planets floating out in the interverse, whatever. So that's kind of what atmospheric perspective is in a nutshell, and I'll revisit it more deeply in a few minutes, probably with color thrown in. Linear perspective is sort of more about how shapes and angles act in space. And what we're going to do here is fairly conceptual. You can also just go outside and draw things that are squarish, and that will help you as well. So both of those ideas are good ones. If you want to start, all you need is a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. I'm using a pen so that you can see what I'm doing very clearly. You can use a pencil if you want. I also think that drawings done with a pen often look more professional, or confident. And they also sort of make you draw a little bit more decisively. So what you need is a big circle. That's your sphere of view, what I don't know what you're supposed to call it, and a dot in the middle, like that. This is what you call a horizon line. Like that. Everybody there? All right. So then what you do is you draw a few blocks in different places. And it's kind of nice, it's kind of fun to try them in different spots. Maybe 3. So notice this one is up here to the right, this one is down here to the bottom right. This one's on the line, which gets you a different result. And this one's right above the horizon line. And you should be able to predict the answer. You can use a straight edge if you want. You can, if you need a quick straight edge, just fold a piece of paper in half. You can also eyeball it. And what you want to do is take each corner and draw a straight line right to the vanishing point. This is what we call the vanishing point. If this seems overly technical to you and you're all like, I don't want to do this, just say so in the comments and we can redirect. But I'm telling you, this is very useful, especially if you want to be out in the wilds of California drawing things like, you know, those dairy farms that all have a house, like a barn like this. You're going to need to know how to draw perspective to draw that thing. Alrighty. So let's see, there's 2 of them, but you see something's missing, and that's like, if you want to draw a cube, you're going to have to draw a line perpendicular to this line. Perpendicular to this line. Parallel to this line, sorry. Right? Because that's the back edge. Where would this back one be? No, here. So you have a front square and a back square. I just did a brain blurb on that one, so I'm going to cross it off and do it again. There we go. And I need one more line to this outer edge. And then I have a front square. Here we go. New color. I need a front square, not a different enough color. Here we go. Red. I need a front square and back square. There you have it. This one's more of a rectangle-y kind of thing. It's a pretty good example of one-point perspective. Let's do another one. This one's kind of fun. I'm trying to make it so you can see my screen. This one might be a cool example of what happens when you put a roof on something. And then so once again, here's the difficult bit. You got to have a parallel line to your front lines. So if I wanted to make a barn, it would look like this. There you go. Barn. It's another one-point perspective. This one also needs a back square. So notice the back square hits all 4 of the vanishing point lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it hits there, it hits there, there, and there. So they're essentially little wireframes. Any other questions about that little bit? Sorry about the blooper here, I just messed up. You still with me? You want to try a couple more? So here's sort of step 2 for this. I have another one drawn. Just in case you're curious, it gets a little weird if you put something out here and try to draw it to a vanishing point. It gets skewed. It's like barrel distortion. Good, Karen, I'm glad you thought that was cool. All right. So here's another one. We're gonna level up here, new level of the game. What happens if you just draw a line here and here? Where do you think we're going with that? Our 2 points. We're gonna do 2-point perspective. So this is 1-point perspective, 1 point. So this is like railroad tracks. This is 2-point perspective. And you do the same thing. I'm actually going to do my vanishing lines in another color just so that they don't mess me up so badly, as I would tell my kids. Here's an orange pencil. It's funny, I have students who cannot bear to not use a ruler. So if you want to use a ruler, you may do so. And then this is sort of a tricksy bit because you need to draw this parallel line and this parallel line and this parallel line. And you also need this back line and this back line. So there you go, 2-point perspective. If I wanted to sort of clarify this drawing, it might be fun to just outline the front bits and have the back bits speak for themselves. Looks pretty nice and solid. You guys still with me on that stuff? We can do another. I like the 2 color. I think it just looks more clear. All right. Okay, let's do the 2 color for this one. So you start by just drawing your parallel lines from the top and the bottom of your vertical line. One, two, three, 4. Then you're going to have to decide, what looks like a cube. Does that look like a cube? Does that look like a cube? Or you can just satisfy yourself that you're going to make some sort of box. So I chose these uprights essentially arbitrarily. And then after I choose them, I draw my other extra lines because I also have to draw one for this corner. And then I will need this one to go to the other point and this one to go to the other point. Okay, so then I can just also make it more clear by using my other thing. So there's my front and back box. So that's the actual box itself if it were opaque. Something that's kind of fun is you can also imagine these things as having values. So maybe the light is over here. Maybe this side is a little bit darker. So there's that. Those are those 2. You can do stuff like this, which is kind of neat. And this will get you pretty close to. Let's say we wanted say we wanted something that looked like one of these weirdo barns. So here's the bottom of the barn. It's only after you try to draw one of these barns that you realize how weird they are, because they're kind of a pain to draw. That's the roof line. That's the hip. You know how they have a hip? They're hipped roofs. That's the other one. And there's that one. So then we need verticals. Then you pretty quickly get a sort of a boxy shape. And if I draw my little house shape, I get this. There you go. Linear perspective. 2-point linear perspective. So there's a third linear perspective, and that's 3-point. We're not going to cover that in this lecture. It takes a while, but you can see it. Just look at it. Look at your dinner plate tonight. There's the dinner plate, the wine glass. Here's your water glass. The vanishing point is here. Cities, place settings. Lie down on the forest floor and look up. Those are all places you see 3-point perspective. When you're in and among tall things or looking down at them. This is a very common view for comic books. Use this a lot. In my Google Classroom, I will post some links to some YouTube videos that go over drawing 2 and 3 and 1-point perspective so beautifully. I love them. I'll find them for you and put them up there. One of my favorite things to learn and to think about and to teach. So here's something kind of interesting for you. Both of these drawings, we are outside the box, right? We are looking at the box from the outside. But particularly right now, with shelter in place, we probably all feel a little bit inside the box. And that's really where we view a lot of our perspective from. So if you're doing linear perspective, you can also do it from inside the box. Let's say your horizon line is here, and you have 2 vanishing points. And say you wanted to draw, let's draw the outside world, just because it's more fun. In which case, I'm going to put the horizon line much higher. Well, look how I did that. Point and point. Maybe there's a point there. Maybe there's a point there. And what I'm going to do is say, this is sort of not, the world's not really like this, but there's a street here. And it's got dashed lines down the middle. Notice the dashes get bigger and farther apart as they come closer to you, and smaller and almost indistinguishable as they get closer up there. Say there's a line, say there's a sidewalk here. So this is sort of the longest street in the world. Maybe we're out in the Mojave. There's a little tiny tree out here. There's a tree. What if there were lots of trees? What if the trees got bigger as they got closer to you? Maybe there's cypresses. Maybe this is the south of France. It probably, ooh, an ant escaped. Here's another little tiny tree on this side. I haven't looked at my chat for a couple minutes, so maybe you guys are all like, what is she talking about? So I'm going to take the top of the tree here, and out to there. Let me look at my chat, make sure everybody's still with me. So this is the outside the box linear perspective. Okay. So all of this is 1-point perspective, right? And my trees are, maybe they are Joshua trees. Right? But what if you wanted to put, say, a barn right here? Let me change colors. Let's put a barn here. And I think once again, I'm just going to do it like this. What if we wanted a barn here? And I want it to be in 2-point perspective. So this is back into the inside the box thing, right? Now it's standing in the road. Whoops. So what I'm saying is you can overlap the 1 and the 2-point perspective ideas. And you can also overlap. Whoa, that's bad. That should be up here on the horizon line or something. I don't know what happened. If you're not lecturing and thinking and drawing and talking at the same time, you can probably overlap the 3 systems. 1-point, 2-point, inside the box and outside the box perspective. If you think about it hard enough. I tend to find that conceptually modeling the world is much more difficult than observing the world. It's much easier to go out, observe the world, and then think about the conceptual model and how it applies to what you're actually perceiving. So that's sort of my rundown on linear perspective. You know, all of this could get much more elaborate and could become essentially a real drawing. Sorry about the barn, it badly backfired. This is why you rehearse these things, which I didn't do. This can also be true for, like, you know, there could be a car here and there could be a truck here, but they all have to obey this same, you know, back to the horizon line idea, which would be fine. You just have to keep it all in mind. I guess this is one of those 1970s sleds. Alrighty. So it's just interesting. You can do the outside the box and the inside the box. You can also put yourself, let me just do this on the other side. You can put yourself in the box. So for instance, if you do 2-point perspective, this could be the room you're sitting in. So this line relates to this line relates to that line. Let me do that with a ruler just because that was fast. So this line here goes to this point. This line here, if I were to draw it accurately, go to that point. They meet in the corner. Maybe you have a bookcase here, which means that this line would be like that. This line be like that. This line, this gets tricky with this short little ruler, would be like that. And this line is just vertical. This line like that. So there's your bookcase. And one thing that's kind of fun to do is, if you get into this conceptual thinking, notice that these act like rays. They radiate out from here. Same thing over here, like maybe you want a door in your house. You also have to do that. There's your door. You know, and if the door has wainscoting, it also has to be in perspective. Oh, brother, this gets complicated fast. So yeah, onward, just like that. So this is sort of put yourself inside the box. And this is 2-point perspective. You know, if you wanted to, and the horizon line is here, there could be like a truck, like a toy truck sitting right here. In perspective. I probably have to draw that more carefully, but it's all possible, right? So you can combine them. Essentially anything at a different angle from other things needs its own point or points. So that's sort of inside the box. If you want to put yourself in your own space, you can draw your own room, and you can do it really quite accurately. Just remember for this one, something that happens a lot when I see people do this at home. Say you wanted to draw the corner of the room, it takes them a minute to realize that this relates to that line, that relates to that line. Usually what happens, people put 2 dots and they draw like this, and then they're like, I can't. But what you have to do is erase this one and that one, and then you're good. Delete, delete. Okay, that's sort of linear perspective.
And you've got some questions.
All right, am I moving too fast here? Why this is called outside the box? That's a good question. Let me read over all the questions and then I will. Can you draw the same inside the box view using 1-point perspective? Oh yeah, these are good questions. How do we determine where the linear point perspective is? Excellent. Let me start with question 1. I just made up the outside the box. Like here, you're outside the box. You're not standing in the barn, right? You're not floating in the box of the sky. You're not sitting in the shipping container. You're outside the box. Here, you're in the box, right? You've zoomed in. You're standing inside the box, looking at the walls of the box. Although right here, still ants in my, right here, this bookcase, outside the box. You're not in the bookcase, although you could certainly draw that if you imagined yourself in the bookcase. And then the room, you're inside the box. So it's just a different way of thinking about it. Let's see, does that answer that one? And I will draw the inside the box with 1-point perspective. And why would you use 1 or 2-point perspective? That depends on what you're looking at. I'll get into that in a minute. How do we determine where the linear perspective point is? It's observational. So right now, what I'm doing is making it up. You can probably imagine yourself standing on the railroad tracks, like at the Palo Alto train station, looking toward Menlo Park. Can't remember if El Palo this side or that side. Here it is. The train tracks are really close together out there, and then as they come towards you, they space out. Where was I going with this? How do we determine where the linear perspective point is? It's in the middle if it's 1-point perspective and you're looking straight down the train tracks. So if you're looking straight at a book or something where the sides are parallel and vanishing together, then yes, it's 1-point perspective. If I were to look at this book like this with my eyes right down on the side, it's 1-point perspective. They're vanishing together to 1 point. If I turn the book like this and I look at it corner on from right here, it's 2-point perspective. So 2-point perspective happens when you look at something corner on, whether you're inside the box looking at a corner of the room, or if you look at it wall on, it's 1-point perspective. So if you're looking at a wall, it's 1-point perspective. And if you're looking at a corner, it's 2-point perspective because you have each of these planes are vanishing to a different point. Does that make sense? Yeah. When you change the horizon line height, you just change your vantage point. Yesterday, I lay down in the grass up on Skyline. This isn't the painting I did, but the painting I did is very similar. I laid on the grass and painted the wildflowers. So my eye line was very, very low. It was so low that all I saw was plants and sky. I didn't see any of the mountains or the trees or the bushes or the hills between me and the bay. I just saw the plants and the sky, because in this case, the eye line, the horizon line is about right here, right? But, sort of in a more traditional landscape, as we see around here, here are the hills and out there is the sea, there's your eye line right there. Very traditional. Often I see really beautiful, or that's actually your horizon line, not your eye line. I see really beautiful landscapes where the land is just peeking up. So your horizon line is low. I also see beautiful landscapes where it's up here. And what's actually going on is this really interesting universe over here. So hi. That is really just a composition choice. If you guys want to do a class about composition, we can. Very classic, a little bit, this would probably be a really beautiful composition about what's going on in the sky. You just get to choose your horizon line. But when it comes to eye line, that really depends on where you're standing, right? So if we take our railroad tracks example again, if your eyes are low, say you're sitting on the ground or lying on the ground, your eye line will be high. If you rent a cherry picker, or you fly in an airplane, then it's going to be low. Usually our horizon line is about right there, but it just depends on what you decide to look at. As you're walking down the street, you're walking your dog, you're probably seeing something that looks about like this most of the time. And since it's the US, we park our cars on our streets, or because it's California. So you usually see something like that. So your horizon line here is your eye line. It's not even the horizon, it's your eye line. I think it's pretty easy to get mixed up the idea of horizon line and eye line, because they're not essentially equal. Sometimes they're equal, but not usually. So eye line is a convention we use. I'm getting a piece of paper back out to place our vanishing points right here. So the vanishing points have to appear on this line for your drawing to work. They can't appear here or here or here or here. Your drawings will come out very skewed. They'll look like barrel distortion in a camera or something like that. Some people draw like that on purpose. It's kind of, I like an ordered and observed world. It kind of bothers me. But some of the drawings can be remarkably cool. So I shouldn't diss it. It's fine. But if you want your drawings to look, I'm going to do the air quotes down here, real, you should put your vanishing points on the eye line. Notice that when I do the horizon line, they are somewhat parallel. I take it back. Sometimes equal, because look how sensible this house looks. It's sitting a little bit below the horizon line or the eye line, and it's vanishing to a 1 point on the line. It looks pretty sensible, right? But if we put a roof on this, we would have to write some sort of story about how on this universe houses float and get tethered to the ground because they're otherwise going to float away on the balloons that make them float. All of a sudden you're in the sci-fi world, right? Let's see. Oh, wow. We just did a sketch of the movie Up. Okay. I think I may have missed some chat questions. Can somebody tell me? Wait, let me just scroll back down. Hang on a sec. Yes, how do you determine the walls of the room? You know, something we can do is when all this shelter in place is open, we can go outside and draw real things, which a lot of your questions, if you just play around in your room or draw the outside of your house, a lot of this might start to make sense for you. And I'll send out the cute little YouTube videos that are so beautifully made about perspective as well, and back it up with that. But let me try and answer all your questions. So the linear perspective point is always on the vanishing line. Right now I'm answering Lisa Malaro. It's always on the vanishing line. And it can be one or two. If you're doing 3-point perspective, the third point is off the line. It's on a different line. It's on the verticality line. And usually the way I do it is this is difficult to do over the internet, but let me hold my pencil up. I actually read the line of things. Like if I wanted to draw this cell phone through the camera, I would actually read the angle the cell phone's at. That angle. I would have to hold my paper up in order to do this. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull this off in real life. I've never tried this. So here's the top of my cell phone. So when I do this in real life, this is essentially my process. This is the observed process. Sorry, that was bad. And I'm essentially just copying the angles from real life on my screen. So I'm looking at the picture of myself and my cell phone and copying the angles, and that's not bad. From that, you could then conclude that the vanishing point is over there and draw the rest of it, or you could just draw it from real life. Let me lay it back down so you can see. So there's my cell phone, drawn from real life with the method I really use out in the big wide world, which is the angle transfer method, which I just really don't feel I could ever teach over the internet. You just saw it briefly in process, but I feel like most people would not get it over the internet, and I feel like it's kind of cruel to try and teach it over the internet. Which is one reason I'm kind of substituting with this system. It also pokes out over here a little bit. That's not bad though. So this also has to go to the same vanishing point out there somewhere. There's my little cell phone setup. Okay, so what I'd like you to do for homework, and this would be fun to see on the Google Classroom, is go outside and see if you can put these conceptual perspective ideas into real life. And I'm a little worried that time is passing because I want to talk about atmospheric perspective, but maybe next week we should just do a whole bunch of atmospheric perspective. If you want to comment on that idea, just do so in the text. And I can bring you a composition class. Somebody asked me, would you do 1-point perspective from an inside the room idea, which I can do now. So here we are. And remember how I said it's 2-point for corners, and it's 1-point for sides, if a side. So that's kind of how you choose one or the other. So for inside, if we wanted to be inside the room, we need an eye line and a point on the eye line. And then we need the wall of a room. That's one wall of a room. There you go. Obviously, this person is pretty tall or standing on something. And then all you have to do, so I'm going to say that this is the back wall. And then we did really well having the drawn lines be in another color. So I will continue. And once again, better ruler. So these are the walls of the room are all going to 1 point. I just feel a little bit like Pete the Cat. Does Anne care if it goes wrong? No, she does not. No, no, no. Then I need, I don't want this room to be a long hallway or whatever. I want it to end. So I just arbitrarily choose an ending spot that I think is reasonable. If I were looking at a real room, I would try and do some angle measurements like I just did with my cell phone to discover what the real answer is. But that's an observational idea. So, I'm sorry, this does not feel much like nature drawing, but it is in fact a natural drawing because it's natural observation. It felt like I got that one wrong, and indeed I did. So there's my room. I can make it look a lot more room-like by adding maybe a door over here. And the door comes down to the floor, so I'm just going to do this. And I'm just going to draw. I'm going to line in the parts that are really part of the drawing rather than part of the guideline. So that. When I was a kid, I used to design dollhouses and things with this. And that, which would make you think I would be better at illustrating it for you. But, sadly, no. Right, so you don't see the door jamb here because it's behind the door. Maybe you see a little bit of wainscoting on this side. What about a window? Let's see, window. Switch colors. Window will be a little bit lower than the door usually. And it also has to be in perspective. Big window. Like that. And it probably has a sill. But notice we just implied a 2-point perspective. So this line and this line are in a different perspective. So they have a vanishing point. It's just over here. So there's a door and a window. Something that's kind of interesting to think about is if there were an equivalent window here, what perspective does it have? So it also has a perspective, especially if it has like a door jamb or like a little, like the door has depth or the window has depth. It's going to have this as depth. So then I can draw upright. Sorry, shifting around a little bit. So this one is going to be, well, it looks like a bay window. Maybe you would put your pots and plants in it. There you go. So there's an inside the box 1-point perspective. Yeah, any other questions about that stuff? I'm going to scroll down the chat so I can see what you all said about it. All right. So let's see. We only have like 10 minutes left. I'm trying to think of the best way. Oh, let's talk a little bit about ellipses, which was going to be on my list for today. And then next week we'll do atmospheric perspective. Is that all right? Because atmospheric perspective, I would like to not just do it on a line level, I'd like to do it on a color level, which gives us another chance to talk about color mixing and mixing around the color wheel, because atmospheric perspective is very color-based, whereas this is very line-based. So ellipses are one of my favorite things to draw. And an ellipse, here we go. An ellipse is a circle that is foreshortened. So you can see it happening here. It's flattening, and eventually it just becomes a line. Here, let me draw that for you. That was a really bad one. So see how this starts almost to look like an animation. And I used to avoid teaching students ellipses. So essentially this is like a tape roll or a cup opening. And then I discovered that if I talked about them for 15 minutes, that was all it took. People could learn ellipses just fine. And it's funny because I think a lot of people think about them as scary or difficult or something like that, but they really are not. They're just, you go from a line, see if I can make it a line in the picture, to a circle. And ellipses are just all those stages in between that. And it's much simpler than you think. So usually when people first draw like a mug, like a coffee mug or something, they tend to draw something that looks like this. And you can try it and see if that's your starting point. That's a lot of people's starting point. And it turns out, I was interested in why do people draw this way? It turns out we're very interested in peeking inside things and we want to see what's in there. So we draw that mouth open, but we're not so interested in this. And we're very aware that cups are flat so that they sit flat. So we draw the bottom flat. What you want to do is go from this to something that's a little more like that. Something a little more shapely, maybe even shaded. So you want to just have a sense of, hey, you're from here to there. And it's pretty simple. Something that could be really useful to you, I actually find that a tape roll works really well for people to study ellipses. I miss the chairs in the Studio A in Art Center because I used them to teach ellipses. Because you can stack them up to eye level and just draw the stack of chairs and see how the circles change. But one thing you can do is draw the tape at eye level. So now I'm drawing by looking here, so it's not so much fun for you, sorry. And then slowly open it. Open it a little more. A little bit more. A little bit more. Ooh, this is the first time I see through. I see the paper behind. So maybe I drew it wrong. It has to be a little bit more open for that to happen because I actually see a little bit of the paper coming through here. And then a little bit more. And that's probably as far as I need to go because the next step is pretty much the circle. So what's interesting to do here is to kind of flesh out the tape and draw the other stuff. You'll notice that the tape has its own form on top. And it's kind of nice to shade it a little bit just to show something about where the light's coming from. You can also do that here. Actually, I think this should be there. And that should be there. Same here. And it does have this little band here. It very quickly becomes sort of a useful drawing. Never done this live before, I think. See, I'm about right here. So I still have this little band on top and then shade inside. And still have this little band on top, shade inside. And then just here's the straight tape. Any questions about that? It's just ellipses turning in space. These two are probably a little bit too similar. If you want to try that, you can do it with a wine glass if you want like super duper extra credit. If you feel like, that was too easy. A drinking glass, a piece of tape, anything. Just like move it around in space and draw it. Another extra credit is to like tilt it or try to draw it in other forms and shapes other than just moving it in the XY direction or the X direction, whatever. So that's kind of a fun exercise to do, and it will teach you so much, especially if you do it observationally rather than conceptually. You can do it conceptually, you can also do it observationally. Something that will help your ellipses read true, and if you've done any part of high school math, Something that helps ellipses be accurate is that these shapes should be almost the same. I didn't draw them the same. Let me try again. Something I often do when drawing, especially when I'm drawing ellipses, is I don't just start here and go around and be like, whoops, I was wrong. I kind of draw more like this. And see how averagely that actually worked out much better. Then I go back. And draw it together. So your ellipses should be able, you should be able to divide them in half and in half. And have them be pretty solid. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Let me scroll down my question line. So A should be equal to B. And because of the rules of perspective, if we're drawing this in 1-point perspective, C should be equal to D. And these two should be approximately equal. But ellipses do actually shrink a little tiny bit in the back, but probably too little for it to matter at this point in your ellipse drawing development. Likewise, if you wanted to start on perspective, like all of a sudden we have either a cup or something we're looking, we have a cup if the ellipse copies. If the bottom ellipse is much bigger, like this, all of a sudden we're drawing something that's like a silo. We're drawing something much bigger. Something that's kind of interesting is in still life, some things that are close to your eye level are going to have very shallow ellipses, and things that are below you are going to have very open ellipses. Things that are above you, the ellipse opens again up here. So notice that at your eye line, the line is flat at eye line. And then it opens some more. Eventually we get to a circle. Up there is a circle, opens some more. So see how they're in perspective now? Not this, but this, these ones. Let me draw them in a darker pen. You might be missing that. Here, darker pen. Eye line, ellipses are a line. I'll just draw two lines very close to it. And then it opens more, pretty close to a circle. Opens more, opens even more, opens more, pretty close to a circle. So they're in perspective. What else can I tell you about ellipses? Oh, ellipses are never, here's something they never ever are. You know how a comet doesn't skid brake? It doesn't go like this and change direction. It loops around. You're looking at something that loops, that orbits. It doesn't just go like this. So none of these little corners. Even if you looked at this really close up where it's like right between those two, you would still have a looping shape, no matter how flat the ellipse. You would never have a pointy almond shape. So not that. All right, that's another good ellipse point. So that's a little bit about ellipses. Something that is really fun to do with ellipses, this is sort of a joke lesson, is make a big stack of them. And then sort of join them together. You'll get this like very Dr. Seussian little critter, plant, whatever. And then use your sort of magic, I'm going to color that even though it makes no sense, conceptual drafting skills. Come up with that sort of interesting drawing. I kind of like doing these. You can make a little made up shape. I thought I would just I have like 2 seconds left. So something that's kind of neat is when you go out into the wild, this beautiful flower just bloomed in my front yard. I can't remember planting it, but I feel very blessed. See how the flower, I'll stop twirling it too. See how the flower is a disc? It's a circle, right? It fits inside here. And the petals go like this. Exactly, right? You're like, huh, okay. That also makes it, because it's a circle, it's also an ellipse. So if I turn it sideways, I'm all of a sudden looking at this. And this, see the, I don't know if you can see this here, the bracts subtending the flower. Those are also an ellipse. And so I can draw them as well. So see how my ellipse is guiding my drawing? So even though it's not a cup or a goblet or a vase, it's still part of my drawing. And so it's actually part of a sketch. I'm drawing it really, really darkly here, but you can draw it bright, or you can draw it really lightly and use your ellipses to sketch things now that you know how to use them. And then erase them later. The same is true for, like, this is hard to see on screen, but this little flower is a circle from above, which means that it is absolutely an ellipse from the side. There's another little ellipse here before the petal starts. There's also a little ellipse here where the anthers end. So you have all these little ellipses trapped in this flower. Anything that's radially symmetrical like this is going to have a lot of ellipses in it. So it's kind of fun. I wanted to show you one more thing. This is not really part of the lesson, but I planted this rose last year and it has really come through for me. It's so beautiful. It's this little variegated rose. It's a climbing rose. So that's sort of today's lesson. I'm sorry it was kind of more technical and less flowery than usual. Next week, I thought we would talk about atmospheric perspective because we didn't get to it today. And then after that, once we switch to the fee-based service, I think I'm going to do kind of conceptual drawing. And I also, you know, I got the most positive feedback about the nature stories class, and I thought I might expand on that in June. So I'll write up a curriculum for June and I'll put it in my Google Classroom. You guys can take a look. And then right about now, I usually ask people, what did I say I would do on the Google Classroom? So perspective videos, anything else? Curriculum for June. It's hard for me to remember if I'm drawing, talking, and teaching all at the same time. Nature stories. And you guys were also like a composition class, which I love. And we can do it in, composition is also important for nature stories and like sketchbook pages. So like in the context of sketchbook pages and nature stories.
Please view class materials on my Google Classroom. The login code is Alpha Quebec 4 Mike Bravo Romeo Sierra. Thank you for joining Anne's Art Desk. These videos are brought to you by the City of Palo Alto and the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation.